Are video games good? And I mean, are video games good for children? Are they good for adults? Are they good for anyone? Should you spend time playing it? Is it a good way to spend precious time of your life? That might seem like an impossible question to answer, and sure, it is personal and it varies from person to person, especially depending on your interests on the topic. But I believe that we can get closer despite what the main narrative around video games says. In their incredible paper, Isabella Granick, Adam Lowell, and Rutger CME Engels write about how incredibly important video games can be. They write on how effective video games can be on a cognitive, motivational, social, and emotional manner to anyone, but especially children. A good question that pops up in recent times is, should we educate our children with video games? Or media as a whole, in fact. And that is a very important question. How much control should parents have over what their children are studying? How much should their parents teach their kids? How much should their teacher teach their kids? How much should media be responsible for that teaching? We all partake in some way in this responsibility of teaching children the correct things to learn about the world, having the right lessons on the outlook of life and of the others around us. It is critical that any kid learns from very early on social dynamics and structures that compose our society. They live in a world where these things exist, so they have to know how to deal with it. And video games can be one of the main ways where we can teach children about the morality of the world they live in and of the actions they take. To exemplify this, I'm going to explore what might be my favorite game of all time, Psychonauts 2. Psychonauts 2 was developed and published by Double Fine in 2022. Despite its title, it finalizes the narrative of the trilogy of games telling the story of Rasputin Aquato, a psychic 10-year-old that sneaks off from his household of circus acrobats in an attempt to join the biggest secret organization in the world, the Psychonauts. The Psychonauts is composed of psychic secret agents that are responsible for keeping peace in the world. In the first game, we follow Raz as he infiltrates their summer camp that trains kids to be future Psychonauts agents. There, he accidentally stumbles upon a secret plan that he is forced to take action upon to save his friends, girlfriend, and the world. For his efforts, Raz is officiated as a Psychonauts agent. And finally, the second game picks up with them arriving to their HQ. There, Raz finds out that he isn't actually a Psychonauts agent. He is only an intern and he has to climb through the ranks of the company if he wishes to become a real official agent. Through his task and mission, he will be forced to unveil secrets pertaining to the organization's past and his family's legacy, which are somehow mysteriously interlinked. Speaking of the gameplay now, Psychonauts 2 is an action-adventure 3D platformer collectathon. This means that you run around, jump a lot, collect a lot of shiny things, and that you can fight some bad guys, all while following a narrative. The uniqueness and creative parts of Psychonauts, however, happen on its levels. Psychonauts 2 has a hub world, which is the main world through which you can access all of its levels. But unlike a normal video game, the levels in Psychonauts are special. Since you're a psychic agent, the levels are the minds of the people you're trying to help. As Raz, you're able to enter into many minds to help them with their struggles so that they can help you in return and progress the story. The uniqueness, however, is that every single mind level, every single brain acts in a completely different way from one another. The brain levels accurately reflect that person's state of mind, dreams, desires, hopes, fears, anxieties, everything into a little level that you can explore. Their personality, their memories, their future hopes, everything is laid out bare so that you can explore and understand where that person is coming from. Thanks to this unique approach to storytelling, Psychonauts 2 is able to delve into topics that many games are fearful to touch on, including alcoholism, social anxiety, multiple personality disorder, gambling addiction, and many others. These topics are very sensitive, as you might guess, but they are treated in a very respectful but also lighthearted way. The game presents a solution to them, acting as empathetic as possible to the people around you, understanding their struggles and trying to help them move past it. The game doesn't present a solution as on Raz's part. Raz is simply a catalyst to all the happenings in the world and the people's lives around him. The actual change in the people's mentality happens through their own efforts and desires. A great example of this is on Bob Zanotto's world. You start Bob Zanotto's world on this little island in the middle of a big sea, and Raz can't swim. So eventually, you find out how to travel in this tiny little world. And you find a little bottle that would maybe look like a message in a bottle or something of the sort. You're able to remove its cork and enter it to discover that this bottle actually had a memory inside of it. And this isn't the only one. Bob Zanotto is an alcoholic, fearful of the person he was, of the person he is, the person he will be, and of what other people think about him. He is afraid of emotionally connecting to people so that he doesn't get hurt again after he loses the love of his life. As Raz, you're able to go into this literal bottled up emotions, delve into them, understand who Bob was, help him remember those connections he had to people, why they were good and why they were bad. Because connections to people are like that. They aren't always good, but it doesn't mean they aren't important. Family is family, friends are friends, loved ones are loved ones, and that is how the narrative presents Bob's relationships to you. They present first Bob's relationship with his mom and how she was an avid drinker and how she died young because of her alcoholism, leaving Bob behind. Then, the game presents Bob's relationship with his cousin, the current head of the Psychonauts, which forces him to leave the company because of his rampant drinking. Finally, the game presents you with the relationship between Bob and his husband. All of these literal bottled up emotions surface up from the sea where they have been drowned into. Bob is actively trying to forget who he was, drown out all of his personality, his memories, who he is into a sea of alcohol. Raz is there to help him remember who he is. He isn't the one responsible for making Bob better. He isn't the one responsible at the end of the story for Bob moving on from this addiction. He is, however, responsible for trying. Bob has been able to isolate himself exactly because all of the people around him have left him alone, isolated. But Raz, a 10-year-old, is the one that reaches out. Is the one that wants to understand where he's coming from, wants to understand what led him to push himself to that state. And when he does plant those seeds of emotional connection back into their pots, they lash back out at him. He sees them for what they are, the vines in all of those beautiful plants. They attack him back, trying to push back and cut themselves off again from Bob's mind. And in the end, it isn't Raz that is responsible for defeating them. It's Bob, as he hears his husband's voice talk through this flower monster in an uncharacteristic way. He realizes that these aren't the actual people he knows. These are only the personas, the perception of these people he has had in his mind. He distorted his own vision of everyone around him, so it was easier for him to disconnect to all of those around him. It was easier for him to distance himself and keep himself separate so he wouldn't hurt anymore. If no one was connected to him, there would be no more pain of disconnecting from anyone. But Raz helps him see that the people he is basing those assumptions on are based on the imagination of who these people were, not really the people he was surrounded by. And Bob's level is just one of many incredible levels in this game. Each mind has their own mechanics and ways to explore that person's state of mind. And that was the point that I'll connect it back to the main discussion. Psychonauts 2 looks like a kid's game. Is what a lot of people would say. It's cartoony, but not in a cartoony way like a Disney movie would be, more in like a Tim Burton's Nightmare Before Christmas way. Still, does the fact that this game covers so many heavy topics mean that it shouldn't be played by kids? Well, if the game isn't for adults because it has a cartoony art style, and the game isn't for kids because it covers heavy topics, who is it for? Video games are responsible for teaching us how to act in this world. They aren't the only ones responsible for this. All the people around us in our lives, but also the movies we watch, everything we consume, everything we read, all of those are responsible for shaping us into the people we are. And Psychonauts 2 is no different. This game makes sure to put as its main messaging empathy. Empathy is the main point this game is trying to put forward. You try to help people around you to fix their own problems, help them realize where they're going wrong, and help them fix it. Give them time, opportunity, and help if they want, but most of all, the understanding of the situation they're in, be empathetic, respectful, and compassionate about the people around you, especially of those you love. And that is just one of the many lessons Psychonauts 2 tries to teach its players. Circling back to the research paper, it briefly talks about how not a lot of research has been done on, as it says, serious games in health and education. Games that try to promote a more serious message and how it would actually affect the players playing it, if the players will actually learn the message that the games try to convey. The paper says that we just don't have enough research at this point to claim one way or the other. But despite the fact that we don't know for sure if media can affect the way we think, that doesn't impede us from asking the games that we play to be more responsible on their portrayal, especially of such deep and heavy topics. And it is also unprecedented that we ask more games and more media to cover these topics, because the more people that understand the seriousness and the various aspects of these topics, the better the world will be, the better that people will be able to talk with each other and congregate and socialize. Games are good. They are good for you, they are good for children. Limits need to be imposed, sure, everything needs limits. But games can provide learning experiences that no other media can provide. Because you're in control, because you are the one that is taking the actions, you feel connected to the story and its themes. You understand its messages. You're able to take out of it more than you would with any film or book or song. Experience other perspectives, experience other points of view, experience how other people see the world, and you will find a better understanding of it and of the people living on it. To finalize, play more video games. Not only more video games, but more good video games. Video games that try to teach you the right lessons. Sure, you can play COD or Warframe for 15 hours, but why not try that sweet little indie jam that a lot of people have been talking about that might have an interesting message that you haven't heard before yet? It could just be a flop, you could just not like it, and that's okay. You now understand why a lot of people do. Video games can, as the paper itself shows and says, help you relax, help you improve your motor and coordination skills. It can help you socialize, it can help you learn, so make sure you're learning the right lessons. Help the world be a better place. And video games might just be the start to that.